So when an atheist, I think maybe there might be a little pivot we see among atheists, and maybe we can apply our tactical game plan to this idea. So, and I've seen this a bunch where it used to be maybe that atheists were saying God does not exist. Well, now they've pivoted a little bit and they're saying, well, I simply lack a belief in God, or I just believe in one less God than you do. They say, hey,
Hmm.
Christian, you have rejected all of this, the polytheistic religions, you've rejected the Hindu gods, you've rejected this and that. But I just believe in one, I lack a belief in one less God than you do. And it's almost like they've
Hmm.
pivoted to make room for them not to be making some kind of a statement about objective reality. But how can we
Hmm.
take our street smarts, our tactical game plan, and apply it to the atheist who would say, well, I just simply lack a belief in God?
Well, you actually conflated 2
Oh,
points
okay.
that I talked about it, and let me just take the second one is like I believe in one, I disbelieve in one less. No, I believe in one less
Lack a
God,
belief.
or however they
Or,
put it.
yeah, I believe in one
I
less God than you, something like that.
Something like that, but the point is you reject all these other gods, you don't believe in them, and I don't believe in one more than you don't believe, and the implication is, and, Richard Dawkins has said this and others have used this, they think this is so profound, and so I my question at that point is, I affirm it. Yes, you're right. Why is that significant? They're trying to make a point here, and they think that, and basically some have said, "Well, you're basically an atheist too." All right.
Right.
But you just have one less God that you reject, and I reject them all. Okay. And it's almost like they're equating all of these other gods and deities to the God of the Bible. And so I said, well, yes, you're right. That's actually the difference between an atheist and a theist, that the atheist believes in less God, or whatever, however you put it, rejects one, uh, all the gods, not just the. So I want to ask him. Okay, so would you say that I'm basically a bachelor? No, you're married, but there's millions and billions of women that I have rejected and I'm not married to. I am just married to a bachelor is just married to has one less woman,
Right, right.
in his life. I'm trying to remember the exact words that I have in the Street Swords book. So does that mean I'm basically a bachelor? He said, "No, you're married." I said, "Exactly. That's my point." No, that's not particularly profound. It's not a long conversation. It's just meant to show that this is a really silly thing to say. Yes, of course you believe in one less God than I do, or whatever, however you put it. But that doesn't mean that the God I believe in doesn't exist. And I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to equate all of these gods. You don't believe in Zeus, right? Because I have no reason to believe in Zeus.
Mhm.
Okay. Why do you think that I believe in the God I believe in and not in Zeus? See, there's a question. Oh, I don't know. There's no evidence or something to say, well, oh, wait, let me ask you a few questions. And by the way, I'm just moving now into another part of the book, because a lot of atheists will say, well, there's no evidence for God. All right. Well, this is actually a very silly statement. And I'm not trying to be this, baldly condescending, but um, just because they're not convinced by the evidence doesn't mean there isn't evidence. For thousands of years, thoughtful people have been writing arguments regarding God. That's all evidence. It's not nothing, okay? But I actually had this question once during a Q&A, and the question was, give me proof for God. It was actually a request, not a question. Prove to me that God exists. Well, this is a hard way when people ask a question that way, because they're asking for proof and you don't know what amounts to proof in their
Mm.
mind. And you might ask for clarification. So, what do you mean by that question? So, when you say prove to me that God exists, what would count as proof to you? All right. That's a fair question. But I actually don't go there, because what they're going to do is give me some bizarre kind of evidence that they would never require for anything else. So
Right.
I told him, I said, this puts me at a liability because I don't really know what would be evidence for you or proof for you. Can you rephrase the question? He said, okay. Yeah, I can. Can you give me any reason why someone should believe in God? Okay, I can work with that. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions? Okay. And I had this conversation with a student at the University of Toronto after my presentation. They came to the microphone. I said, okay, these first questions are pretty simple. Um, but just play along with me. Do you believe that things exist? Now, the guy didn't wanna bite because he knew I was going somewhere with it. So finally he said, "Okay, this microphone exists." And I said, "Okay, I can work with that. All right. I agree with you. The microphone exists and other things as well." All right, the things that exist, whatever they are, have those things always existed, or did they come into existence at some time in the past? Now, this is the origin of the universe kind of question, but I'm just putting it in a very simple way. And you look at nobody believes the universe is eternal anymore. They used to 100 years ago. They don't anymore. The evidence is too strong for the origin of the universe. Christians believe in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and non-Christians believe in Big Bang cosmology. Now, I
Right.
understand some Christians are not comfortable with that. Don't get hung up on the word. They are agreeing with us.
Right.
They believe the universe had a beginning. And so when I ask him about these things always existing, no, they came into existence, he said, like at the Big Bang. Good, I agree with you. They had a beginning. So notice 2 questions so far, we both agree with each other. There's no fight. Here's the 3rd question, and this is the one that really matters, okay? Um, what caused everything to come into existence? Now, I said, I'll make it easy on you. There's only one of 2 answers, either something or no thing.
That's right.
That's it. Law of excluded middle, law of non-contradiction. You want to get all rational about it. That's it. So what do you say? Now, he doesn't want to say that something caused everything because that puts him in the theistic camp. It's going to have to be powerful. It's going to have to be personal. It's going to have to be, really smart to make the whole universe, whatever. So he doesn't want to go there. But what's his only other alternative? His only other alternative is to say everything came from nothing for no reason and with no purpose. And incidentally, those all go together. If everything came from nothing, then there is no reason because there's no reasoner, and there's no purpose because there's no purposer. And now you're stuck with a whole nother set of problems that could be explored if that's the direction they want to go. All right. But in any event, now he doesn't want this particular guy was stumped. He didn't know
Mm.
what to say because once you say everything comes from nothing, I mean, that's worse than magic. You
Right.
know, in magic, you have a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Here you got no magician and you got no hat. You just got the
Yeah.
rabbit, the universe. And so it's not the odds on favorite. And by the way, uh, this is what I'm trying to show. I am not trying to prove God's existence, though what I just offered some of your listeners will recognize as the Kalam cosmological argument. You don't need to know all that stuff. You just need to know, hey, a big bang needs a big banger, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
common sense. It's very simple. And as it turned out, this particular atheist, he obviously didn't want to go there. All right. And he says, well, I'm going to stick with a scientific answer, is what he said to me as he's
Mm.
walking away from the microphone. He's dismissing my point.
Mhm.
That my point being the odds on favorite is someone, not something, a someone, not nothing. All right. Which is
Yeah.
true. It is the odds on favorite. The smart money is on that. But he said, I'm going to stick with a scientific answer. And I said, wait, you never gave a scientific
Right.
answer.
Yeah.
In fact, you can't give a scientific answer to that question because you have to have a universe already for anything like science to work. Okay, no, want you to notice a couple of things about that particular interaction there. And that was that, first of all, I wasn't having an argument with him. I was interacting with him in a conversation and I was using particular questions to lead to a point that was, yeah, I guess you might call it the mic drop moment, but that was the stone in the shoe. I didn't think I was going to persuade him, certainly not at the moment. It might be something he thinks about later, stone in the
Right.
shoe. But there were a lot of other people in the audience that were also listening to this engagement, seeing that he had no answer to the point I was
Mhm.
making, but I had an answer to it that made sense. And I was doing it nicely. But there's something else that's going on, and this is central to the street smarts approach. And that is because I could have prosecuted that point by just making statements. Well, things exist, and the things exist now. They haven't always existed. They came into being at some point, and there had to be a cause for that. And it couldn't be nothing. It had to be something, and the something had to be personal and powerful and intelligent, etc. So I could have done that, preached it. But notice that every single time I make a point, especially if the person is a hostile critic, they're going to try to take exception with me. Oh, no, well, maybe we're just all butterflies dreaming, who knows? Or who's to say whether the universe is eternal or it began? And so at every step, I'm fighting to kind of get my pieces on the table before I can get to my conclusion. But instead, what I did is I asked him the question. And when I asked the question pertaining to that particular piece, he put the piece on the table. He is not going to take the piece off the table if he put it there. And this is true of virtually every conversation that I have on all of these issues that I cover in the Street Smarts book. I've got 2 chapters on atheism. I got 2 chapters on Jesus. I got 2 chapters on Bible challenges. I got 2 chapters on abortion. I've got a chapter on sex and gender and marriage. Oh, it's understanding the challenge, the problems with the challenge, or the problems with the alternate view, and then being able to piece together a response using questions where you're actually enlisting the other person in a very friendly way as an ally in making the point against them. And to me, this is the most powerful thing about street smarts is to know those sequence of questions that get you there. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, uh, I didn't mean to, and I passed over the first issue on atheism, and I want to get back to that. When an atheist says, "Oh, I'm not really an atheist." Some will say, as you mentioned, "Oh, I'm an agnostic." That's actually a point of confusion because they say, "I'm an agnostic because I don't know that God exists." Well, agnosticism is not a knowledge category, it's a belief category. All right.
Hmm.
And that is the belief, that is the point of view that you aren't affirming or denying. Okay. You don't have a view either way, and this is what they're trying to do, the atheists, to escape any burden of proof for their view. So when
Right.
people say, "Well, I don't believe there is no God, I just have no belief in a God," if I were an atheist, I would never do this because I actually think this is intellectually dishonest, and you'll see in just a moment. And so here's what I say to him. I said, "Okay, I'm going to make a statement. I'd like you to respond to the statement, okay? And you have one of 3 responses. You can either affirm the statement, you can deny the statement, or you can withhold."
Hmm.
I don't know. I can't affirm, I can't deny. I'm just going to withhold. Okay. Here's the statement: God exists. So, do you affirm that? No, of course not. um, do you withhold? Because withholding is agnosticism. That means
Yeah.
you're not making a statement one way or another. All right. Well, no, they don't do that because if that were their view, they wouldn't be doing podcasts and writing books.
Right.
People who have no opinion about something don't write about their non-opinion. They do have an opinion. It turns out that they affirm the statement that I'm sorry, that they deny the statement God exists. They deny the statement God exists. Which is, by the way, they have no belief in God because they don't think he exists. So here's the key to keep in mind, and I go into more detail, of course, in the book here, is that they lack a belief in God, but they do not lack a belief about God.
Hmm.
They lack a belief in God, but they don't lack a belief about God. Their conviction about God is that there is no God, which is why they're called atheists.
Hmm. Hmm.
Atheist means no God. A negative, theist God, no God. They make it sound like it means no belief in God, but that's legerdemain. That's sleight of hand, verbal
Hmm.
sleight of hand. Okay, and so when you ask this question, you say, well, or you put it to them this way: if given this statement, what's your response? Well, that forces them to be honest about their view. I understand that you have no belief in God. But the reason you have no belief in God is because you believe there is no God. So
Yeah.
you have a belief about God. And that means that's why they're called atheists. Now the reason they do this is they think this rescues them from any responsibility to defend their view. Okay. I have no belief about the best rugby team in England, because I have no exposure to that. I
Yeah.
totally lack a belief about that. No
Mhm.
opinion. Atheists don't lack a belief in God in that sense.
Yeah.
They do not believe in God because they believe God does not exist. And that's what the questions there in Street Smart, how I just role played it for you, are meant to kind of unwrap a little bit to get the other person to be more honest. And I think the way I end that conversation is I say, look, okay, I accept your definition. You lack a belief in God. But it turns out that you also qualify for the standard definition of atheism.
Right.
And that is you think God does not exist.
Yeah.
Correct? And that's why that question is so helpful that, you got 3 options.
Yeah.
There is a God, God exists. What's your response to that statement? Just meant to keep them honest. Now,
That's
obviously,
good.
this doesn't adjudicate one way or another on the issue, but it's meant to parry a really kind of a weak, response to Christians to avoid any, burden of proof.